All right. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Ashley Sequeria. I am a senior customer engineer at Google Cloud Security for user protection. So I like to do all kinds of stuff like web fraud and understand why people fall for scams and keep clicking on things. However, before I was at Google, I was going through kind of a tough time and really struggling on managing my transition. So I'm just here to share that fun tale about how to manage that transition into cyber. So, a little bit about me. So, like I said, I'm a customer engineer for Google Cloud Security. I am a proud Army veteran. Woo, go Army, beat Navy. Sorry to all you Navy friends. My uncle and I have great conversations every year as he's also retired Navy. I live in New Mexico, of all places. And just as an aside, I did see someone post about them being in Arizona, not having a lot of a tech scene. Come to New Mexico. I spent a year trying to recruit people into my DEF CON group. There's 10 of us. We were all so excited. So it can be done, but I just wanted to point that out. I am super active in the cybersecurity community. You might have actually seen if you went to DEF CON, you might have seen me walking around as a goon. I usually have a mohawk when I'm at conferences, so I'm easy to find. I also am active in B-sides, both Las Vegas and Albuquerque, and I just started conversations to form a B-sides down here in southern New Mexico. I'm a fourth degree black belt in Taekwondo. Yes, for realsies. I can break bricks and do all kinds of cool stuff, even in my old creaky age these days. I am actually going to be a PhD student here in about 8 weeks. I can't believe I've done it. Why did I sign up for that? But I'll be starting at New Mexico Tech, and I'm also an adjunct professor at Boise State. So I do a lot of stuff. Again, teaching's a passion, sharing knowledge is a passion, which is why I'm here for you guys. So you're going to get this bright pink screen for a second because this is all very, very important. So everyone always asks me, Ashley, why do you give this talk? Well, here's some statistics for you. Two-thirds of vets have reported that they had a difficult transition from military to civilian life. I'm going to go ahead and just raise my hand. Go ahead and give me a +1 in the chat if this is you. It's hard. It's really, really, really hard to do this. I know I wasn't ready to transition out. I was like letting all that active duty money rain in. I was having a good time traveling all over the planet and doing Army Taekwondo. And then all of a sudden, orders are cut. I wasn't ready. A lot of the difficulties get attributed to unemployment and health challenges. I know for me, I have complex PTSD. I have degenerative disc disease in my back now, and I'm only 35. So, learning how to cope with a lot of the stuff that is not normal for the general public is a big part of why we struggle to transition. Also, knowing what's next, no decompression time. Like I said, I went from on orders to back in the civilian world very quickly. You don't have any time to decompress. And I know for me, I had even less time to decompress because I was effectively homeless the day my orders were cut. A lot of us probably didn't receive the best support or training for transitioning back to the civilian workforce. And vets all need help with networking. I know I, believe it or not, is actually super introverted. This is years of therapy and getting out of my comfort zone showing right now. But you know, you leave, you get out into the world, and so you're kind of like, okay, now what? So I just want you all to know that I'm giving you this talk because I know it's relatable. I know we've all struggled. I know some of us are still struggling. So again, I want to share kind of a fun story and share some tips with you so that you can help manage this. So let's go back to 2015. I was trying to qualify for the Olympics in Taekwondo. It was a long shot, but I was trying anyway. I did try for national team that year. I was an alternate. Got second place. Really cool considering that I had a very big ramp to get to that point. I attended CISM, and if you're not familiar with that, it's basically the military Olympics. They do it for all these different sports. So Navy sports, Air Force sports, Army, Marine Corps sports. We all get sent to CISM if we qualify for our various sports. So I went for Taekwondo. Before I left, I was on orders for about a year and a half, and I was a reservist. So lots of unpredictable stints of on orders, off orders, on orders, off orders. I was super underemployed. I was maybe making about 30 grand a year, living in Oakland, California. Yes, just outside of San Francisco, and trying very hard to not starve. I'll put it to you that way. I was trying really hard to not be hungry all the time. I was assaulted in my unit before I went to SISM, and I was coping with that. I didn't know how to cope with that. My dad was sick, and I was sleeping in a Taekwondo gym in the office. So, things were going great. Things were going great. Um, I took some time and I went home. I went back to ground. I was still kind of couch surfing. I didn't really have a job. I took a long shot and I applied for a job at Apple of all places, and it was like in phone support. And that was my kind of first actual leg into working for a big corporation doing tech. And there's a point where you kind of wonder, you're like, man, do I really want to do phone support? Sometimes you got to do the phone support to get that foot in the door. And I will tell you this, and these are all in purple because these are all very important. Everyone is looking for technical experts with soft skills. If that is you, I'm going to raise my hand for this too. You are needed desperately. And I figured this out back in 2016. So this is where I kind of first started to understand, oh, well, right now the economy's paying for tech careers. And so I really wanted to make this work. Your physical security experience can get you in the door because guess who got to work at Apple Cupertino, literally protecting prototypes for engineers? This person right here, because I had physical security experience from the military. And you're going to laugh when I tell you what my MOSs are. Any guesses? I'm watching the chat. Does anyone have any guess for what my first job was in the military? Gunner, how did you know? Gunner guessed right. I was a 42 Romeo. I was a trumpet player. I was in the band. I was in the band, and we don't live in Europe. Oh, you were a guitarist. That's so awesome. Yeah, I was a trumpet player. So I was in the army band playing the trumpet, and I now work at Google. So hang in there with me. It's going to get better. So you still need a secret clearance to be in the band. And so guess who got into the Sandia Labs later in late 2016, early 2017? Me, because I had worked in a little bit of tech support and I had a clearance. And that's honestly enough to get in the door in a lot of cases. Contracting is also a great way to get experience, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. So, the summer of 2016, my amazing now husband took me to my first DEF CON. That was our away trip. So I should have known that we were going to get married someday because he took me to a hacker conference for our first vacation together. But I went to DEF CON 24 and I knew I wanted to like work in tech, but I didn't know like what part of tech that was. And there was always an interest in cybersecurity and like infosec and stuff, but when I graduated high school in 2006, there was not like a clear path to do that. It was computer science, do that darn calculus, which I was not a math person, so I was unwilling to do that at the time. I get to DEF CON. I'm terrified because I'd never been to a DEF CON. I knew about it, but I'd never been. And there's all this cool stuff going on, and all the light bulbs and all the sparks, and everything was like, it's like the skies opened up and like light shined down. I knew that this is what I wanted to do. So I went back to community college. And I point this out because I think a lot of us, as we transition out of the military, there's all these schools promising the world. Come to our school, use up your GI Bill. We're okay. It's all right that we're a for profit school. You'll still learn something. We promise. Community colleges are one of the best ways to not overextend yourself with your GI Bill. And in some cases, usually go for much cheaper to get those foundational tech skills. Community colleges do teach job skills. They teach job skills that can turn into a degree, that can turn into exposure and experience for you later. This was true for me at my community college. I did an information system security degree, and I learned about Palo Alto firewalls for the very first time in that information security degree. And this will matter in just a little bit, but just keep that in the back of your mind. So, while I'm at Sandia Labs as a contractor, leveraging my clearance, learning desktop support and the basics of vulnerability management because I had to click a little cute button to scan for vulnerabilities and then go patch that machine, I actually applied and earned the Black Hat Student Scholarship back in 2017. And I mention this because they love to support veterans in this way. And there's so much stuff out there. I've seen SANS, I've seen all kinds of different scholarships. So apply anyway. All they can do is say no. So for all of you struggling, apply, apply, apply. So I go to Black Hat. I'd never been to a Black Hat. I went to DEF CON previously. I go to Black Hat. It's a little corporate, but there's lots of swag and prizes. So I went around and I shopped the tables. And I asked folks who were at the booths, I'm like, how do you do this? Like, what do you do? And sometimes it's just that simple. You don't know what you might want to do until you ask or know that it even exists. I didn't know that I could be a technical trainer in cybersecurity. I didn't know that I could leverage my experience as an NCO to help instruct others and help guide others on their journey. Um, yeah, music. I love that you said this, Lisa. So Lisa said in the chat, music is the only activity that uses all the areas of your brain at the same time. Make music, it's brain food. You're right. Helps with pattern recognition, helps with a lot of stuff. So I'm also a super networker. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, you'll see what I mean. I spend all of my time trying to get to know people, whatever it is that they do in security. I just want to meet them and say hi. And the reason why is because there's a lot of former military in cybersecurity, and those folks managed the transition and found a way to get their foot in. So, hi, John. So I latched on and I said, hey, what are you doing? And I made a LinkedIn. I'm totally one of those like tinfoil hat wearers in the sense that I don't like using any social media, but I made the LinkedIn. I caved and did that at least. So 2017 was really weird. I go to Black Hat, I meet a bunch of people. This contracting company says, "Hey, do you want to work in a SOC?" And that was my very I know I'll get to you guys in a second. So that was my very first actual security job. And they're like, "Do you want to work in a SOC?" I'm like, "Sure," because I know I want to do security. I want out of desktop support. I would like to stop couch surfing and barely being able to afford rent. Yes, let's go for it. So I'm working in the SOC and it's a lot. If you haven't done SOC analyst work and if that's your first job, um, it was tough. It was tough. We were doing everything manually. I worked graveyards and it wasn't even like a regular graveyard shift. It was like midnight to 9 a.m. So already past the point where your brain is ready to shut down for the night. And I drove an hour and a half to commute to this job. Luckily not into the Bay. It was a reverse commute up to Sacramento, but it was tough. So I meet my new friend Matt there, and Matt works in the SOC with me at this time. And he says, "Hey, I went to this really cool training that was offered to veterans with this org called Vets in Tech back in August of that year. So they're holding another one in December." And I'm like, wow, I should go. And, for me, I'm thinking that I'll probably get, a cert, something to show, okay, I can have some new skills, whatever. And what was weird is at the time, the company that I was working for, they told all of us when we started, this was a contract to hire positions and we have positions for everyone. 4 months in, they go, we have one position at tier one and one position at tier two, and there's 24 of you. Good luck. So we were like in some Lord of the Flies, Game of Thrones level kind of nonsense with trying to even get tickets closed. People were deleting other people's tickets. Like it was crazy. So yeah, it was out of control, John. Like that's the right reaction because it was crazy. So I ask if I can go to this training. And they're like, well, we're not going to pay you. And yeah, you can go, but we're not going to pay you for the week. And I was living in a place that didn't have HVAC at the time. Like I couldn't secure it. When it was 39 degrees outside, it was 39 degrees in the house. And when it was 105 outside, it was 105 degrees in the house. It was really bad. I can't believe my husband even stayed with me because like it was really, really bad. So I go to this training. I drove myself all the way to Santa Clara and I stayed in the world's sketchiest Motel 6 because I had like no money, but I wanted to go to this training and I knew I couldn't afford to drive back and forth. So, of course, every deadbolt and like a chair's in front of the door because I'm in like East Palo Alto or something crazy by myself at this Motel 6. But it's at the HQ in Santa Clara. There's glass. I don't work in a basement. I'm like, wow, sunlight. Is that what that's like to go to your job and have sunlight during the day? But this was an opportunity for more networking. Are you noticing a theme yet? Networking is what will set you free. So I'm in a class with about 30 of us, and we're all in there. It's all vets, different walks of life, different branches, different experiences, and we're all there to help and support each other. So I make it through the training. It's about Wednesday. I get this email. Okay. So I get this email. It's Wednesday, and I'd been sending links and just helping my compatriots. We were all like, a lot of us were all struggling. We were all thankful for the free food we got that week because I don't think I would have eaten if it weren't for that free food that week. I sent a link. I just sent a link to share with the class, and this is the email I get back. And so shut my laptop. Like I freaked out. I shut my laptop. I'm looking like this on the other side of the screen, like, is this really happening? This can't be real. Um, I definitely like had to take a moment and do the pinching and just make sure that I wasn't like hallucinating that I'd just seen this email because it had been really tough up to this point. So I finished the training. I went through 4 interviews. I had to drive all the way back to Santa Clara and deliver a test teach. Here's the crazy part. That manager didn't wanna hire me at first. They're like, "Well, you're really good, but you're kinda young, and how do you have this much experience, like, work-wise if you're only" and I think I was 28 at the time. Well, we're in the military. Veterans start some of their careers at 17 years old and do them until their 40s, and it's really hard to stand in a room under 30 and say, "I have just as much experience as you doing some of this stuff," when they've been doing it in their eyes their whole lives. An executive sponsor. This person, Linda, she was the VP of the organization at the time. Linda knew that there was potential for me and she wanted to help change things. So Linda pushed very hard for me and Linda got me hired. And after Linda got me hired, I spent about 4.5 years at Palo Alto Networks. I was a baby technical firewall trainer for about a year, and I'm enjoying my job. I love what I do. I'm traveling all over the place. And then they say, "Hey, there's 30 of you. We're told we can have 10 of you now." Well, as trainer number 30, I saw the writing on the wall, but this is where I learned how to pivot internally within my career. And sometimes, like, the internal pivots are easier than the external. So from there, I went to a professional services consultant role and I migrated firewalls for some of the biggest customers for Palo Alto on the globe. Yep, little old me all by myself. It was awesome. From there, Palo Alto acquires a company called Demisto. And all of a sudden, we have a SOAR practice, and they're talking about SOC stuff and automating things in the SOC. Oh, hey, I know about that. And guess who was the only person on my team at the time who even knew that that was a thing? This person again, right here. So I went on to be a very successful security operations sales engineer for Palo Alto. Before I changed to my final role at Palo, I was number 3 in the world. And I was the only woman on the little screen when they're like, "Yeah, look at all these great people." And there's my name like right in the middle. And I was like, "Is that me?" Like again, I was really surprised. So my final role at Palo Alto was a security operations technical trainer. So I went back to my original team because now they had a big gap in their team to train on the SecOps stuff. So all of a sudden, me being adaptable because I'm a veteran, because we know how to pivot in a lot of crazy situations, I was ready and I was able to come fill in this gap. I ended up being one of the global trainers for Cortex XOR, Cortex XDR, and Cortex XIM before I left. So Google comes knocking. Google came to me, you guys. Again, I thought I was hallucinating when I get this message on LinkedIn and it says, "Hey, have you ever thought about coming to work at Google?" And I used to make jokes. I used to joke and say, "I'll only leave Palo if like Google comes knocking." And then Google came knocking. So I've been at Google a little over a year. And I've done some amazing stuff at Google, but I've leveraged my military experience in a lot of strange ways that I didn't realize were going to help me be really successful later in my career. I was telling Tom earlier, I had to help run a training for about 300 people. We delivered 105 sessions over 4 days. I wrote the agenda. I moved and got all the pieces where they needed to go. I was running around with an iPad like a crazy person being like, "No, go over there. You go over there." It felt like running a range. So if you've ever ran a range, you know how that goes. You're everywhere and nowhere at the same time. And so I got an award for how awesome that went, and I now get to have my cool mohawk and have a whole hair twin within the company that I work at, and I'm having a really good time. So, the reason I mention all this really cool stuff, these are the things that you can start doing now so that you can be up here next year telling your story about how you went from struggling to not as struggling, okay? Networking is everything. I always talk to everybody. There's like a running joke right now, I think at DEF CON, like people go, "Do you know Ashley?" And then they're always almost always talking about me, like, it's kind of scary in some ways. Building relationships everywhere you can is so important. Events like this, conferences in your area, LinkedIn, like, anywhere that you can network, it's critical. You know, I've had school classmates come back and reach out to me, and they're like, "Hey, Ashley, I'm working on this thing," or, "Hey, I heard about this gig," or, "I heard about this job." It happens just like that. Conferences are huge. John Stoner in the chat here, we actually met for the first time at a DEF CON, and now John's a coworker. So it's the community is that small. You really, really need to watch out for opportunities. Connect with all kinds of people because they might post about those SANS immersion academies. They might be posting about free training. I just did another little training with Vets and Tech on Python. You know, so there's always these opportunities out here that exist. The big one, I feel like I should have put this in red and made it the biggest thing on the screen. Leverage your GI Bill at reputable programs. You sacrificed a lot to even get those educational benefits. Do not waste it on a school that is not going to help you elevate your life. And I mean that, I'm saying that with my whole chest right now. Do not waste your time. Your time is valuable. Every single choice that you make counts. Every single choice. Choices I made in my 20s are impacting how good things are going now in my 30s. All right? And if you're getting out at 40, it's okay. I'm telling you it's okay. I went and got my master's degree from Boise State University. I had classmates who were grandparents that were also prior military that were trying to change their lives for the better too. So, you're never too old. Just because you were infantry or just because you were a cook or you were a job that isn't related to tech does not mean that you do not have transferable skills to thrive in that. Tech isn't necessarily about are you the best coder either. I just learned how to print hello world in Python. I'm very proud of it. Okay. Like I don't consider myself a programmer at all, but adding those skills, learning those skills, applying the things we've done before, my musicians in the room, your pattern recognition, the tenacity of trying to play like a hard lick and practicing over and over again. You can do that with Try Hack Me. You can do that in building your home lab. You can build in that repetition to make yourselves better. The best piece of advice, thank you for posting that, Chris. Find someone doing what you want to be doing. I went to B-Sides, Las Vegas for the first time in 2019. Met this awesome person named Nico Smith, who you might have seen floating around the conference. Nico was doing really cool stuff, and I asked him, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "This," and he showed me. And I'm very honored to call this person my friend now. And we all the time, piggyback off of one another and ask, like, well, what are you working on? Well, what are you working on? You have to do that. And again, we're vets. We're really good at helping each other. We're really good at building communities. We're really good with working with people who are different from us. And that is what gives us our superpower to thrive in this industry. I've worked with people in the past who were not good at working with people different from them. They got in the old days. They think it should be only one type of way. They think only one type of person should be sitting in the room with them. And if the military is any reflection of society, there isn't just one type of person that exists out there. So think about what that means for you. Think about your little bubble and your little community. And if you're in a bubble and in a community with lots of people that think the same as you, challenge yourself to reach out and extend that hand to someone who thinks differently. Intellectual diversity is what actually helps us solve problems. The last one that I'll leave you with, and then I will open this up if there's questions or anything. Ask to set up a coffee chat politely. Okay. I've had Recently, I was in a video with Google through Coursera. So if you've watched that, you probably are like, "Is that that person?" It's me. I've gotten so many random messages, Brad. I've gotten so many random messages on LinkedIn, just like walls of text paragraphs being like, "You're so great and you should mentor me." I should mentor you. Ask politely, friends. Always ask politely. Sometimes it's hard, right? When you're struggling, when you're desperate, when you really know that you need to make this thing happen, we forget our manners sometimes. So use your manners, please. That is the best thing that you can do. Um, so I think with that, they are really good videos. I had a great time. All right. So remember, networking is the biggest cure. All right. If you need a job, the only cure is more networking. You have to build your network. You have to reach out. You have to talk to people. Trust me when I say this. That I'm still terrified. I've been talking to you all for almost 30 minutes, okay? You have to step out of your comfort zone. One of the things that the military is really good at is getting you very good at following instructions and doing things a certain type of way. We do have to retrain our brains to be willing to get out of our comfort zone. You have to. There's no more time to be like, "Well, I don't really wanna do that." We wouldn't have joined the military if we were comfortable people. We wouldn't be veterans if we were comfortable people. So push yourself to get out of that. All right. So please connect with me. There's a lot of different ways that I like to get out into the world and get out into the community. You never know when I just might be down the street. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also send me questions if you have any questions. And if you're ever at a conference, please say hi. I love saying hi. I love taking selfies. I love asking what you're doing and all the cool stuff that you're working on. So, with that, oh, and let me do one thing. This is not the email you need for LinkedIn. I usually keep that a little more under wraps, but here's the actual email if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. So, with that, I'll leave this up and I will take a look at the chat. What questions can I answer for anybody? And please don't be shy. I promise I'm nice. I'll start with Chris's question. He asked, "What's it like being famous?" It's really weird. People came up to me at DEF CON and they're like, "Are you Ashley from that video?" Like, it was really strange. Middle school me would be surprised and nothing but shock and awe to know that my life is like this. Um, Great question from John. John asked, "What other groups, nonprofits am I a part of that I find valuable?" I am a volunteer associate education director for an organization called CNSP or CSNP. They basically work to make education accessible to everyone. I'm a member of another great org called Cybersecurity. I'll be helping with some of their educational programming over there. Um, let's see. B-sides, of course, is amazing. And if you don't know about security B-sides, I think the number this year was about 839 different B-sides conferences took place at some point this year. So I almost guarantee that there's one that's near you. And then, of course, I'm a goon at DEF CON. So DEF CON is still my favorite. Nice. See, Lisa's already going to a B-side, so y'all already know. I don't have to tell you. Chris asked if I had to start over, would the Google certificate be recommended training? I actually do recommend it. It doesn't cover everything, but I think it does a very good job of setting expectations for what's out there and some of the different types of roles that you can get into. And it is geared towards preparing for the Security Plus, if that does help provide some more context. Any more questions? I can do this all day, y'all. Man, what a great question. How long did it take me to get an apartment and get it together? About a year. So I was sleeping at Taekwondo gyms, and I'm totally one of those people that's like, I won't go home. I'll sleep in my car before I'll go home. I slept in my car one night and then I went home. I went right back to my parents' house. Um, I took about 3 months or so after going back home. My dad was very kind because he's like, he literally said to me, "Sweetheart, you've done a lot of really cool stuff, and sometimes things just don't work out the way you want them to work out. So do what you need to do to get back together, get back on a routine, and then get back out there." If it gives you any perspective, Lisa, so remember, I was sleeping on, Taekwondo mats in 2015, and now I own 2 houses, and it's 2023. So hopefully that helps you understand. Um, what roles would I try to tackle if I did cyber something in the military and want to end up at Google? Everyone seems to want to be a pen tester. Is that realistic? I want to say yes and no. Like, there's a lot. I always see like pen tester roles and stuff like pop up on LinkedIn, but I started as a technical trainer. Um, I'm not saying I'm terrible at like red team stuff, but it's not something I do every day. GRC, governance, risk, and compliance, for a lot of us with like more admin and policy types of backgrounds, that is a great foot in the door in a lot of ways. Um, I was a firewall engineer. I've been in the SOC. I've been an incident responder. I've even been an internal liaison at a company for other cybersecurity teams as a program manager. So I wouldn't necessarily say that you have to be a pen tester. I still, I guess depending on when you catch me, I may be rusty on some of my like more red team or like recon types of tasks. So I don't necessarily think that that's the only way. There's a lot of ways to get involved. Um, Gunner asked how long I was in the Army band. Long enough to know that I needed to reclass to 25 Bravo. I did my full first 6-year enlistment, and then I transferred over to an information operations unit, and I did get retrained as a 25 Bravo. Still ended up on the phone doing help desk, but at least I had like the basics to know enough to move into something closer to what I wanted to do. Any other questions? We still have a few minutes here. Don't be shy. My favorite color is purple, if you couldn't tell. Oh, everyone got shy. All right. So with that, the last thing I will leave you with, some ideas on how to use the GI Bill. I don't know how to speak to a Google employee. You guys are so funny. Um, Yeah, so with your GI Bill, so there's a couple things you can do. So you've got, of course, if you're lucky and not unlucky like me, who joined the reserves like a fool first, you probably have that delicious post 9/11 GI Bill. If you know you're going back home, if you know you have a partner or a spouse that's already established somewhere, look into good programs in the area. And if you can't find any, across like, okay, just as an example, I'm at Google, right? If you see a bunch of vets that are at Google, see where they went to school, ask them about the programs. I was actually shopping around for PhD programs, and I just reached out. I said, hey, I'm looking at starting a PhD here. I want to know a little bit more about it. Can we talk? And again, vet to vet, it was no problem. So that's one way that you can definitely leverage it. Vocational rehab's a big one. If you were a wrench turner or a trigger puller and you want to move into tech, you can also leverage voc rehab on top of your GI Bill. So there's a lot of different ways that you can leverage that. Chris doesn't know how to speak to a Google employee. Well, like, you're talking to one now. I don't know. I mean, I just work there, like, it's not a big deal. How long have I been going to DEF CON and volunteering? So like I said, my first DEF CON was 2016, and then I didn't go back for a couple of years because I was still trying to get my life together. And so I went back in 2019. I did virtual DEF CON. If you watch virtual DEF CON and saw the slideshow, there's a picture of me with my whole mohawk with my vest on. So if you've seen that picture, that was me too. 2021 was that weird not COVID, still COVID year, and then I went back in 2022. Immediately got COVID after gooning on the first day for the merch line, and then I went back this past year. So like 4 DEF CONs. Um, yeah, Brad, that's a great resource. Do I have an end goal in mind for my career? Uh, I'm a busybody. I think for me, probably the next big step after I complete my doctorate is figuring out how to. I want to go to Google Tag, their threat actor group. I really want to get into like deeper research and it'd be really cool to be like, "Oh, I worked at Google Tag." Probably after that, I really care about helping underserved communities and I really care about how kids get educated in K through 12, and I think we need to change how we do that. And so I want to actually build like proper STEM kind of alternatives for the kids that were probably like me that were bored with the traditional K through 12 education. So if you see like on the news, I open like some giant like residential academy out here in the New Mexico desert, that's probably me. Anything else? I like the questions. Oh, thanks, Chris. It's weird sometimes because I think I don't know, I feel compelled to do it, I'll put it to you that way. I don't think that I have to do a lot of this stuff, but I like giving back, and again, we're vets, we like to serve our communities, so thank you for listening, please connect with me. If you are struggling and you need some advice or just wanna talk, please also reach out. I am my door is open to all of you, but thank you so much for letting me be here.